Welcome to episode 20 of transforming a laundry room into a bathroom. If you missed earlier episodes or are unsure what this is about, there's a playlist. For the occasion, you'll find the link in the description with all the previous episodes. From demolition to installing the bathtub, the shower pan, a partition wall with the toilet, the vanity, and a tall cabinet that will be suspended. And previously, we made a sliding door to replace this door. Since I'm moving back little by little, I have the bathroom door to install, a closet that's going to go right next to it, which will serve as clearance for the door. And as I keep moving back, the door opens the wrong way, so it's getting in my way. I'm replacing it with a sliding door. That's what we did in the previous video. I removed the door, put the old one back, and took down the rail. And now the goal is to apply joint compound on this panel and this panel, the joints, and to skim coat all the drywall sheets. But we're not going to use just any joint compound. We're going to use a DIY store joint compound from Monsieur Bricolage. Monsieur Bricolage is a partner for this video. I went to the store in Montoire-sur-Loire, in Loire-et-Cher, which isn't very far from my place. I got all the products I needed, and together we're going to do the joints and the skim coating. And you'll see that you don't need to hire a professional to get a great result. So, if you like my videos, the best way to support me is to subscribe to Make in France, turn on the notification bell to get new videos, and give a big thumbs up. You can also follow me on Instagram. I regularly post photos and videos. So, as I told you, I went to Monsieur Bricolage and got all the products I needed to do the taping and skim coating. We need joint compound, which comes in several types: patching, finishing, and all-purpose compound. For the joint tape, we need taping knives, tape for the joints between the boards, and for the finishing. I got a kit, the magic kit. I'll tell you more about it later. It has everything inside: the joint compound, the roller, and the taping knife. We're going to start by doing the joints. I have two joints to tape, one above the door, one on this side in the corner bead at the ceiling level, where the ceiling and wall meet, and you'll see it's very simple to do. We'll do it together step by step. I was away for a while and it was cold, so I wore a vest. But doing your taping in a t-shirt or sweater won't matter. Before applying the tape, there are several things to check, especially that the screws are properly driven in. If they're in too deep, it's completely useless, and if they're not in enough, it'll get in your way when you apply the compound. It'll create a bump, and no matter how much you sand, you'll always see the screw head. So you run your hand over the screw heads to check that they're not sticking out, or you take the taping knife and run it over the screw heads, and if it catches, it means the screw isn't in far enough. The screw head really needs to be flush with the drywall. When it comes to the tapered edge, if the screw sticks out a little, it's not a big deal, because that's exactly what the tapered edge is for, where we'll be placing the tape. My board is 13 millimeters thick, and I have a tapered edge of 4 millimeters on each side of the drywall. So I'll be able to stick my tape into the joint compound, and when everything is smoothed out, it should be flush with both drywall sheets. It needs to be perfectly flat from one board to the other going over the tape. And then we'll do a full skim coat to hide the tape and make everything uniform, since my drywall has a different texture than my tape. A lot of people don't understand why you have to coat an entire board. They think, well, it's smooth, I run my hand over it, I can paint. But the surface of drywall is actually cardboard. So if I paint on a surface that's different from the joint compound, I'll obviously get a different finish. Even if you use the best paint and the best roller, you'll always have a difference. And that's why even if you make a perfect joint, you'll always see the joint through the paint because the finish is different. When skim coating, you tape the joints, and once it's dry and perfectly flat, you can coat everything, and then you'll have a uniform finish. So we check that the screws are properly set, that the boards fit well together. And if you have about 4 or 5 millimeters of gap between the boards because they were installed poorly or one is broken, you absolutely have to fill the gap with joint compound. That's very important. And here, for me, it's perfect. They were installed correctly. The screw heads aren't sticking out. We'll be able to apply the compound and the tape. So to stick the tape, we need tape, filler, joint tape, and a knife or taping knife. It doesn't matter. Here it's a taping knife that's 10 centimeters wide. If it's a knife that's 8 centimeters wide, it'll work the same way. The idea is to put your fingers behind the spatula, 2 or 3 fingers, it doesn't matter, and hold it at a 45-degree angle. If you hold it at 90 degrees, you'll remove as much filler as possible. And that's not good because the tape won't stick to the filler anymore. I don't bother putting on filler just to remove it all. And if you hold it too flat, it's absolutely useless. 45 degrees with 2 fingers behind, applying slight pressure to press on the tape so it sticks to the filler. So we smooth the filler, stick the tape, and once it's stuck, we can take a wider knife and go over it again. We let it dry, do the second coat, a third if necessary, and then a complete skim coat. So here I'm using special joint compound, and we always start from the top down to apply the compound. It's easier this way, otherwise you'd have to work backwards. It's not as easy. So we apply the compound. And then we'll stick the tape starting from, let's say, not exactly the middle, but about 2 meters up. You raise your arm, you touch at 2 meters, and then you go down and finish the top last. It's easier because the tape will naturally fall. We can apply the compound and lift it back up. So once we've put enough coating, we scrape the sides. So next we take the tape that we cut beforehand and place it in the mud. Then you check that you're right in the middle of your tape. And we gently press with the knife, 2 fingers behind, 45 degrees, we press lightly. Here is just to hold it in place while I go stick the tape at the top. So then we continue, we press the tape into the mud. Stop, I do. And the idea is to find the tapered edge. Here you can see that it's outlined. So we continue, we take the second strip and place it in the compound. We start in the middle. We press it with our fingers to ensure it stays secure.
So I can stick the top part.
And now what we can do is gently press on the knife and move it up toward the ceiling to remove the excess mud. If I scrape like this, it won't be pressed flat and will cause a bump or wrinkling. And now that it's stuck up high, I can come and remove the excess mud. By pressing lightly and at a 45-degree angle, I press on my knife. And I remove the compound. And there's no point in removing too much. As I said, removing more makes it stick less. And now for the bottom part, it's the same story. We scrape, we remove as many little air bubbles as possible that are behind the tape. We press with the spatula to push out the air. Now that the tape and compound are on, I'll show you with a trowel. It's nearly flat compared to the tapered edge. One more pass will fix it. And all that's left is to fill the screw heads. Nothing complicated, we just take some compound. And we do this, that's it. We scrape off the excess. And we move on to the next ones. The taping are done, the screw heads are filled in. Now it may look dry because it looks white, but it's not dry. We'll have to wait several hours before doing the second coat on the tape and screw heads. In the meantime, we'll tape the corners. I have to do the ceiling to wall joint and above the PVC door. I have about 40 cm to tape, so we're going to use a specific tape for the corners. The advantage is that when I fold my tape, it stays in position. So we can use a paper tape, reinforced just like we can use a composite tape. Personally, I really prefer to use a composite tape. Basically, they're made for the corners around window or door frames or skylights, but we can use them for the ceiling wall joint, and it really defines the corners perfectly. And if you have bumps or even a dip, by sticking on a tape that's reinforced, that's rigid in this case, it's going to define your corner and you'll have a perfectly straight corner. So we get the taping knives and the joint compound. We apply the joint compound, stick the tape, smooth it out, and that's it. So next we take the corner bead that we bent and we stick it into the joint compound. And now we press it down with the taping knife and we remove the excess joint compound. Here we go. Go! Here we go. Alright, we're back 24 hours later. Everything has dried well. The tape, the screw heads and the ceiling wall joint. Now we can apply the second coat, so on the tape, the screw heads and also the ceiling wall joint. Let it dry for 24 hours and then we'll be able to do the third coat. But the third coat will be a complete skim of this panel and this panel. Let it dry, sand it, and we'll have a perfect result. You won't see the tape at all anymore. We'll have the same look on the wall and tape since joint compound will be everywhere. So the goal is to do the second coat of joint compound, to load the tape a second time to cover it up. My tapered edge, if it starts here, it ends there. We're going to widen the area with joint compound so it blends on both sides of the panel. The goal is to use just enough joint compound. Too much causes a bump, too little leaves a dip behind the blade. I need to make it as flat as possible without any dips or bumps when the joint compound dries. So now we can smooth the joint compound. We're going to apply it. It's going to be exactly the same, the joint tape compound. And once it's completely dry, I want it to be as flat as possible. We can scrape off any little ridges if there are any. We can also sand the tape if we've put on too much compound. And our third coat will be the full skim coat that will cover the tape and the paper of the drywall, and I'll get the same result
everywhere that we can sand and paint.
So always keep your fingers behind the knife for more strength, and we spread the compound. And now I'm smoothing with a much wider knife. Do you see how far it goes? It goes from here to there. We keep it at 45 degrees because holding it flatter removes more compound. So here I smooth downward. I smooth toward the area that had already been coated before. That leaves a knife mark around here, which will be covered by the final skim coat. And if you don't do a full skim coat, this knife mark will come off during sanding. We keep smoothing here, but don't press down. The blade does all the work, so pressing isn't needed. You see, I remove this bit of compound each time. It's not much. As I told you, if you hold the blade too much at 90 degrees, you'll remove a lot of compound. By holding it at 45 degrees, I can make a pass. Look, it's like this. You see, I'm barely removing anything. The goal isn't to take off compound, it's just to smooth it out. And for the screw heads, we take the wider knife and do this. You see, it's not complicated. Now we can do the rest. For the corners, we do the same. Apply joint compound, spread, and smooth it. And the flatter you hold your knife, the better it will smooth without removing any compound. See, I just have this on my knife. And we're not trying to make it perfect on the first try. It's completely pointless because there will always be some small touch-ups here and there. We'll fix those when sanding, then do a full skim coat as mentioned. From what we see, the angle is good and there's compound everywhere. That's what we need. The tape is done, the corners too. We're going to let it dry for at least 24 hours. Then we'll start skim coating this panel. This small panel, this one. And we'll stop about here because I need to put up drywall so the sliding door can go behind it. Alright, we're back 24 hours later. The second coat on the tape and the screw heads has dried well. Now we can apply a full skim coat on this panel and on this panel. If you have small bits of joint compound, scrape them off with a knife. There's no need to sand the tape or screw heads. If you put on too much joint compound and you see that it makes a bump, of course you can sand it, but normally there's no need to sand. Here, if I take a blade and put it against the tape, it's perfectly flat. So, like I said, if you made a bump, you try to fix it by sanding, but normally there shouldn't be any bumps. And with the knife, you can remove the little bits of joint compound here and there, and you can apply the full skim coat. So we're going to use the kit from Tout Prêt. Of course, you have the joint compound, the blade, the roller. Everything is included in this kit. It's specially made for damaged walls. You can apply it on textured walls, on fiberglass wallpaper. You can fill up to 5 mm thick. You'll find the link in the description. I got it, as you saw, from Monsieur Bricolage, and the advantage of this kit is that it's suitable for both individuals and professionals. Whether you're an individual or professional, if you've never coated a full panel, this kit covers 8 to 10 square meters. So it's the best way to practice and fix a damaged wall or on a new wall to get some experience. And you'll see that it's actually quite easy to do. So if, like me, you already have the roller with nylon sleeves and the smoothing blades, of course you can use them. That's what I'm going to do. I have them in different sizes, 45 centimeter, 30 centimeters, and even 60 centimeters. They even go up to 80 and beyond. So we'll start with this panel and finish with that one. You should know that you can tint the joint compound. If you ever have a wall that's already white and you say, yeah, but I can't really see where I've smoothed or where I'm applying the joint compound, you add some colorant to it, stir it, brush it on, smooth it out, and at least you can see where you're working. It's the same for paint, but we'll discuss that in the next video. Tinting the primer helps you see better, since white on white is hard to notice. So we apply the joint compound. Then we let it dry for another 24 hours. Applying joint compound takes a long time because you always have to let it dry for at least 24 hours. After that, we can sand it and the walls will be ready to paint. So we take the roller, we check that it's clean. Here, it's a new roller, but if it's a roller that's already been used, we clean it thoroughly. The idea is not to get dried compound into the fresh compound, because when I apply the compound to the wall, and if there's dried compound in the fresh compound that I'm smoothing, obviously it's going to leave a mark. We check to ensure the roller is completely clean. We're going to load as much compound as possible onto the roller. And here, it's important to load the roller well, because I need the same amount of compound everywhere. So let's go. We dip it several times into the mud so that it's loaded as much as possible. There we go, there we go. Now that it's well loaded, we can apply the filler directly to the wall with the roller. We apply the filler to the wall with the roller directly, and we can cover areas of 1 square meter. Don't work on large areas because you need to smooth the filler while it's still fresh. If you start doing entire panels, obviously it will dry on one side while you're spreading the filler on the other, and you won't have time to smooth it out. So small areas of about 1 square meter are enough. And here the idea is really to spread the filler as evenly as possible. You can even cross roll. And take your time, don't get frustrated. There's no point in thinking you have to hurry because it's going to dry here. We still have time, so don't rush. On the contrary, you can go back over the area where you just applied the filler. Spread the filler. And there's no point in making big strokes and going really fast. It doesn't help at all. What you need to do is take your time and spread the filler evenly. Spread. So here you saw that I made several passes with the roller in one direction and then the other. That was just to load the roller with filler. For the area above, below and the other panel, I won't have to cross roll as much since the roller is well loaded with filler. So now we can smooth it out. I've got the smoothing blade, it's clean. We check that there's no dried filler on the blade. Now we can smooth the filler and we'll keep it as flat as possible. The idea isn't to remove the filler, it's just to smooth it out. If I hold it at 90 degrees, I'll end up removing most of the filler. I keep it as flat as possible and just smooth the filler.
I keep it as flat as possible. As flat as possible.
Hold as flat as possible. Hold. So the roller is new. You can see some little hairs inside. We don't touch them. They'll come off on their own during sanding. If you see that it can actually come off, just remove it. There's no need to worry. They'll come off during sanding. And so here, it gives us a really ultra smooth finish. This is our third coat of joint compound on the tape, but we've gone over the edges.
Onto the drywall to cover everything.
For this area, it's done. I'm going to tackle the top and bottom areas, and then I'll come back to the area that was coated earlier. Because if I put my smoothing blade in and try to smooth the top or bottom area, it's definitely going to leave a mark in the coating. If I go back into the coating, it'll leave a slight ridge that will go away when I sand it. The blade, we clean it every time with a sponge and it's clean. We don't leave any dried coating on it when smoothing, otherwise it'll leave big marks. And I go back into the previous coated area. The holes there, that's normal. They're for the sliding door rail fastenings. I don't fill them in, obviously I need them.
Here we go.
So always use a clean blade. I clean them again and go back up into the mudded area. Alright, last step now that the mud has dried well, it's going to be sanding the wall. So manual or electric sander, we'll talk about that in a moment. For now, I have a pencil and the idea is to mark the entire wall with it. Same for the one behind me. The benefit is I'll know where I've sanded. Pressing hard isn't needed. I just want to make close pencil marks vertically and horizontally. Then I use the sander, and if I've erased my pencil mark, it means I've sanded that part of the wall. So I can see the difference between what has been sanded and what hasn't. If I don't use a pencil, the mud is still quite thin. I'll sand to the left, then come back to the right, and when I go back to the left, I'll wonder, wait, did I sand this area? I don't remember anymore. So put some pencil marks on your walls, on your ceilings, then sand, and you'll see you'll save time. Now back to the sander. Of course you can sand walls with a manual sanding block. It works just fine, but it creates a lot of dust. You'll have to cover the other rooms and ventilate the room. In the room where you're sanding, remove as much dust as possible. The electric sander lets you connect a vacuum cleaner and not just any kind. Don't use the vacuum cleaner you normally use for cleaning, you'll ruin it because plaster and mud dust is deadly for vacuum cleaners. You need a vacuum cleaner with automatic filter cleaning. I'll put in the description the vacuum cleaners, sanders and sanding blocks from Monsieur Bricolage and you'll find what you need. The abrasive 180 grit. Use the sander at a slow speed and that's perfect. What I want is just to lightly sand my mud, smooth out the spatula marks, the lumps of mud. I'm not trying to strip it. The lower you go in numbers, for example 40 grit, the more it will strip. The higher you go in numbers, for example 600 grit, the finer the sanding will be. But here, for skim coat plaster, to smooth out the small spatula marks, 240 grit or even 180 at slow speed is perfect. And once everything is sanded, a very important step is cleaning. You take a microfiber cloth, ideally a colored one, and wipe it over the walls. Use the vacuum cleaner with a microfiber cloth attached to its end to clean the walls. This removes most of the dust. Then use the cloth by hand to wipe the wall again. Keep cleaning as long as the cloth turns white. The cleaner the surface is, the better it will be for painting. Do you see how important it is to clean the wall after sanding? Here, the microfiber cloth is full of dust. If I take a new one and wipe the wall again, there's a lot less dust. So remember to clean the walls thoroughly before painting. Alright, sanding and cleaning are done, but I'll say it again. Cleaning is a very important step that you shouldn't neglect. I'll discuss this again in the next video as we'll be painting the walls and ceiling. Thanks to Monsieur Bricolage in Montois-sur-Loire for the warm welcome. And that's what we're looking for, both professionally and personally. A warm welcome, proximity and helpfulness. So as you understood, we'll meet again in the next video for some painting. Still with Monsieur Bricolage. I'll be testing their paint, their own brand, and I'll give you my opinion. Thank you for watching this video. We'll see each other soon. Take care until then.